all the time, we were getting whooped, except for Antietam. Now you try to figure out how that you can replace all those guys with not enough people to fill your rank. If they lost 4,000 people, 4,000 men, it's going to be hard for them to replace those. Or if the North lost 5,000 or 6,000 men, they had a whole lot more people to choose from. So like you said, you take the women and children out of the fray. In the beginning, they had an age limit of what they do. Well, the South went back and upped that age so they could get older men.
Last call for
so with that number, surprisingly, you know, the war went on for 4 years.
Come and meet the president.
And then took Abraham Lincoln 3 years, a little over 3 years, to get the right guy to end this thing, and General Grant in 1864. So when he got into the thing, this is the first time during the whole thing that East meets West. Because all the time before that, we had McClellan and these guys over here in the East, they were carrying on their own war. And we had the guys over here carrying on their own separate war. Grant was doing real well when we finally got him in charge over there. Halleck, who was originally in charge over there over Grant, was didn't get along too well. We finally brought him and put him in charge, general in charge in the East. Then we left Grant. So Grant was doing okay with Shiloh, Fort Donelson, Fort Henry, and then in Vicksburg. Now, we finally changed generals 3 or 4 times on the West and the East, and we finally got Grant to run the whole thing. And in 1864, things started to change, and then we finally started putting Lee in a predicament that he couldn't get out of. Now these guys, all these guys were with Lee during the whole campaigns at Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg. Now these guys were whooping my guys most of the time, except for Antietam and Gettysburg, I guess. And then we finally got to Petersburg.
We don't want to talk about Antietam.
Huh?
We don't want to talk about it.
But the thing is that we were all friends before this thing started. They were all classmates. My guys were classmates with these guys at West Point. And they were fighting each other. But now, like I said, with all those numbers, how could you figure out that they could win? So with all the population we had in the North, we finally pulled out and won, and then Lee surrendered at Appomattox in 1865. And I'll let them do their thing. General Robert E. Lee.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a Virginian. I was born a Virginian and I will die a Virginian. But I yield to none of my love for that flag, because that is the flag of my father's. My father was Harry Lighthorse Lee, that rode beside a man that's fairly famous as well, George Washington, who happens to be my wife's great-grandfather. So I am steeped with American history and heritage, and I yield to none I love for this country, as he yields none love for America, as they and as Our Lady. But I was here yesterday and had a long talk and got a little long-winded. I get carried away.
Yeah, excuse me.
And I believe you do too, Honest Abe.
I tried to be brief
honest
today, sir, and I was brief.
Well, until I was interrupted, I was going to be brief, but now I'm going to carry the floor. But no, we're waiting for people from church. That's what they waited to announce, but we're glad you're here. And I am honored to have these fine people and these beautiful ladies. And let me tell you something, I firmly believe behind every good man is a great lady. And you have Mrs. Lincoln here, and you have Mrs. Longstreet, and we have some special people. If I may, General, today is the first day that Jeb Stewart has been with us, and I'd like to introduce him, a young man who used to come to my house when I was superintendent at Arlington, at West Point. He's come to Arlington as well. But I kept noticing that every Saturday when I had students over that were honor students, the names James, Ewell, Brown, Stewart was always on one of the cards, and I went to my wife and I looked at her and said, "My Mary, I cannot help but notice this young man is always present at one of our dinners." And she looked at me, "I like him." Well, he came in and I started being more observant, and when he sat down, my oldest daughter, Mary, went, "Boo, boo, boo." And I kept watching, and every time he would speak, she kind of turned red, go, "Ooh." And I started realizing that maybe it wasn't my wife that liked him so much, but my oldest, the one that's called daughter. And I never did thank you for the time that my daughter, when the war broke out, she was at Moss Neck over to those people across the river. And you helped rescue her, but she refused to come because it said it caused more danger to the people she had stayed with. But thank you for your insight and taking care of it. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, General Jeb Stewart.
Well, welcome. Me and General Lee go back a long way. Not only was he my superintendent at West Point, but when I was out in west in Kansas, I had developed a little clip that you're able to remove the sword from your belt more easily. And I went to Washington on leave to file a patent for that invention. And while I was sitting there waiting for my patent to be filled, I started listening, and I could hear the higher-ups in Washington talk. And I heard that some commotion was going on at Harper's Ferry. A man named John Brown had taken trying to take the arsenal there, and it was held up in the engine house. So they gave me the letter. I was off duty, but they gave me the letter to take to Robert E. Lee. I borrowed a uniform, ran to now General Lee's home, and told him we need to go to Harper's Ferry at once. When we go to Harper's Ferry, on the way there, we find some Marines to help us out in the situation. We find John Brown is held up in the engine house, and I'm the man that's going to deliver the note to him to say whether to surrender now or we will be taken by force. And when that door opens, and if I can get it open enough, wave my hat and the Marines will go in and take John Brown. So I go up to the door, knock on the door. Old man peers out of the side of the door of the engine house, and when that door gets open enough, I tell him either surrender, it's going to be by force, and he refuses. I wave my hat, the Marines go in, and we take John Brown. He's hung a few months later for his act of treason. But me and General Lee have been around for a long time together, know each other for a long time, and he's known my tenacity because he's heard stories about when I was a young man. My brother Alec and me were on the farm at Laurel Hill. We found a hornet's nest up in the tree, and we wanted to take it home as a souvenir. So me and Alec started to climb up this tree. You know what would happen as soon as the hornets start seeing that you're gonna come towards their nest, and they start flying out. Well, Alec gets down and takes off before skedaddles. Leaves me up there. But he didn't leave me. I stayed because I was going to get that hornet's nest. I took a stick and squinting my eyes trying to get through all those hornets. I knocked that hornet's nest down, and I got that trophy. But that's my tenacity. I wouldn't let a hornet whoop me, and I wouldn't let a Yankee whoop me either. So there's some wonderful times I've had in the Army. Wonderful times. One of the best times I ever had was when we was camped out at the Brower up in the northern Virginia. And we stayed at this large plantation house, and I had a very good adjutant. His name was Harold von Borke. Big Prussian man. He was over 6'2", weighed about 250 pounds. He was a giant of a man. And him and another one of my adjutants decided they were going to put on a puppet show. So they put up a big sheet in the hallway, put a big lantern right behind it, and so you could see their shadows. Well, they did a whole bunch of things. One of them, they played doctor. Harris, or Vaughn, as I affectionately called him, put a big pillow underneath his shirt, made it look like he had a big bulbous belly, and the other adjutant acted like he was pulling out things out of his mouth. He pulled out pots and pans. He pulled out deer antlers, everything in the world. But their final thing that they did was that they decided that they were going to do a can-can number. So Vaughn dressed up as a lady, and when they were dancing together, you couldn't tell which one was which because of the shadows. But until Vaughn lifted up his dress, you could see those big Prussian boots on. That's the only time you could tell it was him. After the party was over, I went to Vaughn. I said, "I may forget you, what you did in the war, but I'll never forget the way you looked as a woman." Now, in November of 1862, that was a sad time for me. My wife's name is Flora. Our first child, we named Flora as well, my daughter. She passed away in early November 1862. I had another son named Jimmy. Actually, his name didn't start out being Jimmy, I'll be honest with you. His original name was Philip St. George Cook Stewart. That was named after his grandfather. But once his grandfather decided he was going to go with the United States, I decided that I would never let one of my sons have the name of a traitor. So I changed his name to James Ewell Brown Stewart, Jr., Jimmy for short. Now, when little Flora passed away, my family's heartbroken, but there's also someone else that passed away that was very dear to me as well. And it is Captain Pelham. He was my artillery officer. Pelham was a wonderful young man in his early 20s, and he left this world too soon. But I told my wife the next child we have, whether it's a boy or a girl, that child's name will have the name Pelham in it. And the next child we had was Miss Virginia Pelham Stewart, named after Captain Pelham. Then November 62, we were outside of Fredericksburg, and I had my headquarters at a little cabin, and me and Vaughn went up to the top of the roof of that cabin because we heard a commotion, a big commotion. Down below us was some of your corps. McLaws and Hood's corps, about 5,000 men apiece. They got into a fight. Now, not a fist fight, nothing mean towards one another. They were throwing snowballs at one another. They were having a snowball fight. 10,000 men throwing snowballs. Me and Vaughn was sitting there watching the battle lines move back and forth, and every now and then we'd have to dodge around because them snowballs would come flying at us. We had a fine time. Now, there's plenty of beautiful young ladies here in the audience today. That reminds me of a time I went to Middleburg up in Northern Virginia. And Middleburg, Vaughn went up and said that Stewart's gonna be riding through town, and all the ladies flocked. About 50 of them flocked to the center of town. And I rode through, and as I'm riding through, I get down off my horse, and the ladies start kissing the hem of my jacket. And I made the mistake of saying, "I would much rather your kisses fall on my cheeks." And I got mobbed. Vaughn had to drag me out and amongst 50 women, put me on my horse, and get me out of there. I nearly lost my life in kisses. Now, that fateful July day in 1863, I had made General Lee had told me to make a ride around the Union Army. He didn't specify which direction I should go. But I decided I was going to make another ride around. My first ride was around McClellan's army along the peninsula, but I decided I was going to make another ride. He didn't direct me which place to exactly go, but I did make another ride, and I lost complete contact with the Army. I am the eyes and ears of the Army of Northern Virginia. My men that are stationed out in front of the Army, they have a perimeter around General Lee's army. If there's any breakthrough in my picket line, we can hold them off until General Lee can get infantry up into that point. I am the eyes and ears, but I left contact with General Lee, and I'm sorry about that. He moved so fast, and I moved a lot slower than I normally did. But by the time I made it to a little town called Gettysburg, it was already July 3rd, and 2 battles had already taken place. I captured hundreds of wagons along the way. The prisoners I captured, most of them were actually paroled. They were going to slow me down even further. So I captured hundreds and hundreds of wagons along that route. I initially thought I was going to burn them, but I did bring them into the Confederate Army.
They were full of supplies that we most terribly needed. Supreme barley and oats for the horses and payroll gold. But it slowed me way down, didn't it?
It did, sir. And when he came to me, my blood was up. I was flipping my ear, mad, and I had no time. And those 218 wagons were useless to me. But later I realized that I had made a mistake. And I offer my apologies, sir, for losing my temper. A man who cannot control his temper has no business trying to control others.
General said, speaking on more about
General Longstreet, would you like to discuss what happened in those fateful days of July?
Very much, very much. I'm General James Longstreet, Lieutenant General, Commander of the 1st Corps of the Army of Northern Virginia, right-hand man to Robert E. Lee. Like I say, I commanded 20,000 troops. Have you all heard of a town or a battle called Gettysburg? A lot of people think that the Battle of Gettysburg maybe took place on a field this size, or maybe 2 times this size, or 3 times this size, just to have a battle. The fact of the matter was, there's so much more to the picture once you step back and look and examine. I'm going to try really quick to tell you why there was a Gettysburg. As soon as this troop train quits blowing its whistle, we need those troops, don't we, General Lee?
Absolutely, they're bringing troops and supplies. Needed supplies. Appreciate you, Frank, having supplies shipped up here.
I just wish it would have been at a better time.
Me too.
Thing called the Civil War. So there's nothing civil about it. I think of the word civil as meaning caring, considerate of your brother, your neighbor, your family. There's nothing civil about this war or any war. But in this thing called the Civil War, the Confederate Army knew that they were running out of everything it took to sustain victory and win a war. They knew they were running out of bullets, bacon, beans, boys, everything. The North, Abraham Lincoln, had this divine plan called the Anaconda Plan that circled the complete Confederate states. And we could not get supplies to replenish our troops. So the Provisional Army of the Confederate States, the PACs, it's kind of like a modern Congress, they came up with a grand plan of heading to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the state capital of Pennsylvania, to scare Washington, D.C. into coming to the peace table and having a surrender or mutual terms. You know, we'll be our own country, you be your own country. There were a lot of people in the North, Copperhead, that did not want any part of Abraham Lincoln's war. We knew that. We got family, we got friends living in the North. We know what's going on. But the plan was to take 70,000, leave Virginia with roughly 70,000 Confederate troops and go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I didn't want any plan as part of that. I wanted to take my 20,000 men of my corps, go to Vicksburg, Mississippi, where Ulysses S. Grant was attacking Vicksburg. Vicksburg was on the mouth of the Mississippi River, and whoever controlled Vicksburg controlled the shipment supply line up the Mississippi River to the Ohio River and the Ohio Valley. So I wanted to take my 20,000 men and go help General Pemberton at Vicksburg, Mississippi. But the orders were, we're taking 3 corps, close to 70,000 men are leaving Virginia, and we're going to have a substantial victory up here on northern soil. There was nothing to eat in the state of Virginia for the horses, the men. The crops were coming on in Maryland and Pennsylvania in June and July. So that was another reason to go north. So it wasn't just having a battle on a big field. There was a method to this madness, okay? And we left off with 70,000 Confederate troops. You might have heard that we went up there to get shoes. I guarantee you there wasn't 70,000 pairs of shoes in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We were aiming for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the state capital. We wanted the big prize. And maybe even Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As we headed north through Maryland, we had to peel off troops to our right, to our left, to guard our flanks. And also, by way of these troops, that left supply lines, vital supply lines, back to Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy. Jefferson Davis could dictate his orders, General Lee could communicate with him, and so forth. As we got into Pennsylvania, by the time we got up to there, what did you say we had, about 58,000? Aiming for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, we got detected at Gettysburg. The plan was to go to Harrisburg. It's going to take days and days and days for 60,000 troops to come together up there. You can't all get up there at one time. The roads back in those days was awful, just like this road right here.
General, if I may, on Gettysburg, it is shaped like a spoke. All roads lead into the center. It's like a wagon wheel. And there's no way you can negotiate 4 or 5 abreast through that town.